Did you know that leaving food uncovered overnight can attract not only insects and bacteria, but in some regions, even snakes? While this might sound surprising, it's a very real issue in many households across the world. The Prophet, with his unmatched wisdom, advised us to cover our food and drinks at night, a practice that is as much about health and safety as it is about mindfulness and obedience. Consider the story of a family in Cairo. They often left leftover food on the counter, thinking it would be fine until morning. They noticed ants crawling over the dishes and flies gathering around their meals. Once they began covering their plates each night, the difference was remarkable. Fewer pests, cleaner food, and a sense of comfort knowing they were following the Sunnah. The simple habit isn't just about hygiene. It's a practice that connects us to centuries of prophetic guidance, reminding us that care and foresight are forms of worship. Covering food protects our health, preserves Allah's blessings, and aligns daily living with spiritual mindfulness. Pause for a moment. Have you ever thought about what happens to your food while you sleep? Do you cover your food at night? Tell us why or why not in the comments. Historical and Quranic context. The sunnah of covering food and drink at night is deeply rooted in the teachings of the Prophet. As narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, he said, "Cover your vessels." This simple yet profound guidance shows how the Prophet combined spiritual mindfulness with practical daily living. The act of covering food is not just about avoiding contamination. It reflects a broader principle of care, foresight, and responsibility, values emphasized repeatedly throughout Islamic teachings. The Quran also reminds us of the importance of valuing and protecting what Allah has provided. Allah says, "Eat of what Allah has provided you, lawfully and good, and do not transgress." Surah Al-Ma'idah 588. This verse encourages us not only to consume permissible and wholesome food, but also to handle it responsibly. By covering our food, we are protecting these blessings, preventing waste, and honoring the sustenance Allah grants us each day. Consider the situation in refugee camps in Jordan. Families living in temporary shelters often struggle to store food safely, facing extreme heat, insects, and limited resources. Volunteers have been educating them on simple measures like covering food containers. By adopting this sunnah, families experience fewer spoilages, less waste, and greater health protection, turning a timeless prophetic practice into a modern lifesaver. This guidance transcends centuries. Whether in the bustling streets of Cairo, refugee tents in Jordan, or a quiet home in Indonesia, the wisdom of covering food remains alive and practical. It's a reminder that every small act of care, when done with intention, can have a profound impact, safeguarding our health and reflecting our gratitude to Allah. These teachings weren't just spiritual, they were practical guidance for daily life, alive even today. Have you ever seen food go bad overnight? How did you prevent it? Share your experiences. Scientific and health insights. The practice of covering food at night is not only a sunnah with spiritual significance, but also a practice backed by modern science. Leaving food exposed can lead to contamination from bacteria, dust, insects, and other airborne particles. Pathogens such as Salmonella, E. coli, and Staphylococcus can easily multiply on uncovered food, increasing the risk of foodborne illness. Additionally, nutrients in food can degrade faster when exposed to air, light, or insects, diminishing both its taste and its health benefits. Scientific studies show that covering food prevents the growth of harmful microorganisms and preserves essential vitamins and minerals. Even brief exposure to air or pests can reduce food quality, creating a silent threat to health that many might not notice until it's too late. Covering food is therefore a simple yet effective step in safeguarding the meals we consume and the health of our families. A real-world example comes from a restaurant in Istanbul. The management noticed recurring complaints about minor foodborne illnesses among customers. They began training their staff to cover all prepared food overnight, not only in storage but also during service breaks. Within weeks, complaints dramatically decreased, demonstrating that a small, intentional action could have a huge impact on public health. Staff also realized that covering food kept it fresher, extended shelf life, and reduced waste, echoing the timeless wisdom of the Prophet. Beyond restaurants, households around the world can experience similar benefits. Whether it's protecting homemade meals from flies in Cairo, storing leftovers safely in New York, or safeguarding provisions in refugee camps, the principle remains the same. Covering food preserves its integrity and protects our health. The Sunnah teaches us foresight and care, principles that align perfectly with modern scientific understanding. This convergence of science and Sunnah highlights that the guidance of the Prophet was both practical and profound. For over 1,400 years, Muslims have been unknowingly practicing food safety measures that modern science now confirms as essential for preventing illness, preserving nutrients, and protecting lives. Covering food is more than a hygiene measure. It's a reflection of mindfulness, gratitude, and obedience to divine guidance. Science is confirming what the Prophet taught over 1,400 years ago. Covering food is protection. Have you ever gotten sick from uncovered food? How do you now protect your meals? Spiritual dimension. Covering food is not merely a hygienic measure. It is a profound act of mindfulness and obedience. When we intentionally cover our meals, we demonstrate care for what Allah has provided and show gratitude for His blessings. The Quran reminds us, "And eat and drink, but do not waste." Surah Al-A'raf 7:31. This verse encourages believers not only to consume responsibly, but also to protect and value the sustenance granted to them. By covering food, we prevent spoilage, reduce waste, and express reverence for Allah's provisions. Consider the story of an Indonesian mother who prepared a large batch of traditional sweets for her family. One night, she left them uncovered, and ants devoured much of her effort. The loss left her feeling frustrated and anxious. After learning about the Sunnah of covering food, she adopted this practice diligently. Not only did her food remain safe, but she also experienced a deep sense of spiritual peace, knowing she was honoring Allah's gifts. Every plate she covered became a small act of worship, a reminder that even the simplest routine actions can hold spiritual significance. This principle extends beyond food. Every moment we act with mindfulness, care, and gratitude, whether in how we treat possessions, interact with people, or manage our resources, can become an act of devotion. Covering food reminds us to reflect on Allah's generosity and to approach life with intentionality. Even unconscious acts, like protecting our meals while we sleep, become part of our spiritual practice when performed with awareness and intention. Globally, countless believers follow this sunnah in homes, restaurants, and shelters, integrating care and devotion into their daily routines. From a refugee camp in Jordan, where volunteers teach families to safeguard food, to households in Cairo preventing contamination, and even to busy kitchens in New York, covering food becomes a bridge between worldly practicality and spiritual mindfulness. Your care for food can be an act of worship. Even small acts matter. What small daily act makes you feel closest to Allah? Share in the comments. Addressing common questions and misconceptions. A common question many people have is, what if I forget to cover my food at night? The beauty of the Sunnah is that it emphasizes intention over perfection. Starting the habit of covering food consistently is what truly matters. Even if you occasionally forget, your mindful effort counts in the sight of Allah. The key is to cultivate awareness and gradually integrate this practice into daily life. There are also valid exceptions. Some foods may be cooked immediately the next day, or certain items may require brief exposure for cooling purposes. In such cases, the Sunnah does not impose rigid rules, but encourages mindful care whenever possible. The overarching principle is responsibility and attentiveness, not strict rigidity. Consider the story of a nurse in Turkey who works with elderly patients in a care home. She noticed that many patients left drinks uncovered overnight, creating hygiene risks. Instead of imposing strict rules, she gently taught them the habit of covering even for a few minutes before sleep. She explained that even a brief moment of mindful protection fulfills the spirit of the Sunnah and keeps them safe. Over time, the patients became more conscious of their food and drinks, showing that small, intentional actions can have a meaningful impact. This guidance applies to all believers. Forgetting is human, but beginning with intention transforms ordinary routines into acts of mindfulness. Each night, when you cover your dishes, you are practicing a prophetic tradition that nurtures both health and spirituality. Small, consistent efforts accumulate into lifelong habits that protect your well-being and honor Allah's blessings. The Sunnah is about intention, not perfection. Do you forget to cover food sometimes? How do you remind yourself? Real-time inspiration from around the world. The Sunnah of covering food at night is practiced by Muslims across the globe, uniting believers through simple mindful actions. From bustling kitchens in Morocco, where families cover tagines before sleeping, to high-rise apartments in New York, where office workers carefully store leftovers. This practice transcends culture, geography, and lifestyle. Wherever Muslims live, they integrate this small but significant habit into daily life, demonstrating care, gratitude, and adherence to the guidance of the Prophet. Take, for example, a recent story of a convert in Brazil. Before embracing Islam, he often left food uncovered and never thought much about it. After learning about the Sunnah, he began covering meals and drinks nightly. The practice was initially simple and practical, but over time, it became deeply spiritual for him. Each plate covered was a reminder of Allah's provision and a connection to the global ummah. Believers around the world performing the same mindful act. He shared that this small habit made him feel spiritually grounded and part of a larger, worldwide community of faith. Around the world, Muslims experience similar moments. In refugee camps, families carefully cover dishes to protect their limited resources. In restaurants from Istanbul to Kuala Lumpur, staff adopt these practices to honor both safety and tradition. Even children are learning to participate, helping parents cover meals as a daily act of responsibility and mindfulness. Every night, across different time zones, millions of believers engage in the same Sunnah, reinforcing the idea that faith is both personal and communal. This global practice highlights a profound truth. Acts of devotion can be simple, yet unifying. Covering food is more than just preventing contamination. It is a tangible connection to the teachings of the Prophet and a shared spiritual experience with Muslims everywhere. It reminds us that small, consistent actions carry enormous spiritual and practical significance, creating a ripple effect of care, gratitude, and mindfulness. Somewhere on earth right now, someone is covering their food just like you. You are part of a global practice. Where in the world are you watching from? Share your city to see how universal this sunnah is. Call to action and emotional close. As we conclude, let's reflect on the multiple benefits of covering food and drinks at night. Spiritually, it is an act of mindfulness and obedience, a simple way to show gratitude for Allah's provisions. Practically, it preserves food quality, prevents contamination, and reduces waste. Health-wise, it protects you and your loved ones from bacteria, insects, and airborne particles that could cause illness. The Sunnah combines wisdom and practicality, reminding us that even small, consistent actions have profound impact. Consider how believers around the world implement this practice daily, from families in Morocco and refugee camps in Jordan to converts in Brazil and apartment dwellers in New York. Each act of covering food becomes a link in a chain of global adherence to prophetic guidance, a moment where practicality meets spiritual consciousness. Every plate you cover is an opportunity to participate in this worldwide tradition and to align yourself with the teachings of the Prophet. The Quran reminds us, indeed, Allah loves those who are mindful of Him. Surah Al-Imran, 376. Covering your food is a small but meaningful way to practice mindfulness. By being aware of how we care for the provisions Allah has granted, we express gratitude and nurture both our physical health and spiritual awareness. This simple habit transforms a routine act into a conscious, worshipful practice. Tonight, when you cover your food and drinks, remember, you are not just protecting your meals. You are practicing a sunnah that safeguards your health, reduces waste, and pleases Allah. It is a reminder that even the smallest actions, when done with intention, carry spiritual significance. Tonight, when you cover your food, remember, you're practicing a sunnah that safeguards your health and pleases Allah. Will you cover your food and drinks tonight? Comment yes if you will, or share why not.